Going up to 19 past 10 on 97.3 ABC Illawarra. Well, the story we started with this morning was the Wollongong trucking firm, which has apparently been charged for allegedly forcing its drivers to work overly long hours. 200 fatigue-related charges have been put to McCabe Transport by the Roads and Maritime Services. Louise Negmine, who's been staking out the company in Yanandera since this morning, says that the boss might have thought it was a case of mistaken identity, that McCabe is a common name, but no, Roads and Maritime Services says no, they're definitely the right one. The TWU's local delegate in the Illawarra is Nick McIntosh, and he joins us now here at 97.3 ABC Illawarra. G'day, Nick. How are you going?
G'day, Nick. How are you?
The TWU have been pushing for their truck drivers to not be under so much pressure. Are these kind of charges the inevitable result of the pressure from big retailers?
Well, look, the first thing I'd better say, Nick, is I'm not... the first thing I was aware of the McCabe issue was when you guys ran it this morning, so I've been out and about, and I haven't been kept up to date with that particular case. But generally speaking, yes, this doesn't surprise us. I mean, I've spoken to you in the past about this, that this is exactly what's going to happen when major retailers push and demand that prices get lower, because it just means, as usual, drivers have to drive longer for less money, vehicles don't get maintained, and obviously we saw the tragic consequences of that with the Coots tanker at the end of last year.
Had any of your local members been complaining about their treatment by McCabe's in the past?
Look, not as certainly not in the very recent past in Wollongong. We haven't. I actually checked this morning just before I came on your show, and I haven't been able to get through to anybody. But we hadn't heard anything ourselves, no, Nick.
Okay. Is it difficult for truck drivers to complete their documentation to the satisfaction of Roads and Maritime Services?
Well, look, I think it can be in the sense that things have been. Well, as of yesterday as well, things changed with the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator coming in. I think it will be made easier over time now, though, that this has come in. We're sort of hoping that the national uniformity, that hopefully not too many changes are made to the way drivers have to log all their information. Hopefully that will make things easier, because people will get used to it, and hopefully there won't be too many big changes with all of that. But I mean, mistakes are made, just like anything. Just because there's something's amiss on your logbook doesn't necessarily mean you've done the wrong thing. It just may mean you've filled it out wrong that particular day.
Well, that's what some drivers have been telling us, that it's paperwork and there's these inadvertent problems and 5 minutes either side. But 200 charges tells a different story. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, look, I think that's exactly right. I think you've got to you've got to look and say, look, there can be issues whereby someone might get held up when the truck's being loaded and unloaded, and that means that half an hour outside of their normal depot, their hours run out, and obviously that can be a problem for somebody because they think, well, I'm only half an hour away. I mean, there's a situation like that, which is one thing, and there's a situation where there's just a blatant disregard of hours, which means, of course, that you've got fatigue drivers on the road. And as we've said, Nick, I don't know, as I said, I don't know about the case of McCabe. I can't comment on that, but we have said in the past that many of these companies, it's not because you've necessarily got some boss at the top just saying, I just want all these hours driven and that's it. It is normally because the top of the supply chain is putting the pressure down, and the fact of the matter is, if these drivers don't drive the hours and don't get the work done, they're going to lose the contract and they're going to lose the job. And that's the fatigue management. Look, we're a supporter of it, obviously. We don't want to see anyone fatigued out the road, but fatigue management guidelines themselves aren't going to solve the underlying problem, which is the top of the supply chain putting all this pressure on drivers right down the bottom. And unfortunately, it's the drivers that end up getting fined or going to jail or in the worst circumstances and the top of the supply chain just wipes its hand and go, oh, well, that's not our fault. And that's what the problem that we say is fundamental to all of this.
I mean, if there's a paper trail, and we're talking about a paper trail here and documentation, isn't there some sort of paper trail from the top end, from your big retailers, that shows that they're making unreasonable demands on the drivers?
Well, I mean, you think there would be something easy to point to. I don't think that it's necessarily the case, but what we as a union have said and argued for and now have in place is this is our Safe Rates Tribunal, the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal it's called, which last year we ran a case of the retail supply chain saying that these companies at the top have to start showing the commission exactly the hours that drivers need to drive. They've got to be aware of what they're making people do. It's no good saying, look, we contracted out the work to a big, reputable firm and we wiped our hands clean. They've got to know. We're saying every step of the way, every link down that chain, they've got to be made aware so that if something goes wrong, they know about it and they can fix it. And I think at this point what tends to happen when you look at someone like Coles is they go, oh, well, we give our work to a big company, and as far as we're concerned, that big company does what they want to do, and if anything happens further down the chain, well, that's not our fault. I mean, that's what's basically happening at the moment, and that's what our Safe Rates Tribunal is trying to address, to make sure that the top of the supply chain always knows exactly what's going on, and if there's a problem, they've got the power to rectify it. Okay.
We've also got the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator, a national body starting only, 2 days ago now. Has that got the potential to change behaviour on top of the Road Safety Remuneration Tribunal?
Well, look, I think the answer is sadly no. I think the reason is because the point of the National Heavy Vehicle Regulator, particularly when it comes to fatigue management, is that it's supposed to create national uniformity. I mean, it makes sense when you look at situations where, I mean, there used to be this classic example where I think, don't quote me on these numbers because I can't remember them off the top of my head, but in New South Wales you could carry, 40 cattle, and in Queensland you could carry 46 on a truck. So what were you supposed to do when you crossed the Queensland-New South Wales border with 6 extra cattle? Those sort of things, those sensible things it addresses, and it means everyone's on the same wicket, and it makes it easier for authorities, and it makes it easier for drivers, particularly those who cross borders, to know what regime they're under. But it's not going to address the underlying problem, because all it is catching people at the bottom rather than actually going to the top of the supply chain and saying, well, hang on, the problem is yours. You can't just wipe your hands clean and say, oh, look, that guy breached his hours and that's not our fault. And that's what the Safe Rates, I mean, this will work hand in hand with the Safe Rates Tribunal if the Safe Rates Tribunal is allowed to do its job. And at the moment, as I think I've said on your program before, Nick, the Abbott government has made no bones about the fact that they don't think that there's any link between safe rates of pay and safe behaviour on the road, and they want to get rid of the thing. So if they get rid of it, this ain't going to solve the problem.
All right, Nick McIntosh, good to talk to you this morning. Thanks very much.
It's a pleasure, Nick.
Nick McIntosh is a local delegate for the Transport Workers Union here in the Illawarra.